Hey, BassGeek here. We're out on Cherokee Lake today, and it is warm. It is going to be almost 80 degrees today, and it's supposed to snow tomorrow. Anyway, let me tell you, we were catching them on lipless and jerk baits earlier today, but the sun come out, the wind died down. What do? You pick up a girthy worm. Let me show you. That's right, geeks. So something you can do, and forgive the light, I know you can't see hardly any of my face, but I wanted you to see this awesome lake. We're out on Lake Cherokee, and something that we did today, because we were catching them on some jerk baits, some spinner baits, and some lipless crankbaits. But by midday, it is just completely laid down and flattened out on us. The sun's come out, it's beautiful, but that makes the bite tough. So what do? I love to throw a worm that's got a little bit of girth to it. You know, that way you're not having to weed through the dinks. Even though some of those dinks, they gonna eat this big fat worm. What is it? All right, let me sit down and show you what I picked up from JBro's. That's right, geeks. You want a worm that's got a little bit of girth. Maybe keep away those line burners, those dinks. Even though they like it too, they will try and swallow this big old thing. This is the 5-inch fatty stick bait from JBro's. This sucker is a load. Now, it's that time of year. You can rig these so many different ways. Now, what I like about these is they don't have salt in them. So yes, you're still going to get a nice wobble when they fall, but you're going to have to put a little bit of a heavier hook. You're going to have to put some sort of flick shake on them, but that makes them extremely durable. They've got incredible action in the water. The 3 ways I love to rig this is, of course, as a Nico rig. One of my very favorites, because it will stand up, is a shaky head. This thing is a incredible shaky head worm. But when you've been fishing the places that I've been fishing today, these rock seams, these bluff walls, there's only one true way to go about it, and that is as a Texas rig. So I'm going to show you how I rig this up Texas rig style, and I'm going to show you a couple of tips that's going to make this thing irresistible to those bass. But before we do that, I do want to run through the colors that I actually picked up from JBro's. This is the one that we've been getting the bites on today. This is watermelon red flake. You've got some dirtier water, you gotta have some black and blue flake. Something that to me is incredible. I know it's great, you know, from like Florida on down, but I can't tell you how many times when the water dirties up that I throw a June bug instead of a black and blue, and I will outfish my buddies with that color. I love this in that ultra clear water around those big smallmouths as they get ready to come up on the bed, and when they come up on the bed, because it's got a little bit of purple in it. This is green pumpkin purple. And of course, you've always got to have green pumpkin black flake. So today, how we're rigging this is Texas rig. And the reason why we're doing that today is because we're fishing around some big boulders that's got some gaps between them, some crevices between them, and some bluffs that's got some crevices in them, or some steps where the bass can get up in between them. So what we want is for that weight to go down quickly, and then that worm be slowly pulled down in their face, just a nice slow fall based on the weight of the hook. So the very first thing, and I've already put it on here, that we're going to do is we're going to put some bobber stops on. Now, geeks, everything in this video will be linked in the description. If you don't mind, right now, either scan this code or click on that Tackle Warehouse link down in the description. Make sure you bookmark it, so anytime you're going to order from Tackle Warehouse, it'll help the channel out. Does not cost an extra dime. All right, let me finish showing you how to rig this. So what we're going to do first, we're going to run that up and out of the way. So what we're doing is we're going to take a 3/16 angler tungsten. This is a flipping weight. He makes the worm weights too. We're just going to put a flipping weight in there. This is green with black flake. So we always want to go into the pointed side, and then we're just going to let it slide. Next up, I'm going to use an EWG, a Gamakatsu EWG hook. The red doesn't matter. It's just I've had some for a while. The reason why is because that is a girthy worm, and we need a little bit of extra gap to be able to set the hook. But we're just going to tie a pit seam knot. And again, we'll just come down and we'll wrap it about 4 to 7 times is plenty. Then we're going to come through that loop right there. We're going to pull it, moisten just a touch, and cinch it down. Make sure both sides are cinched. Then we're going to cut that tag in. Now we're going to leave this about 2.5 feet. That bobber stop about 2.5 feet. That's going to give us a nice little range of motion. That way when this hits the bottom, this bait is going to fall nice and slow based on the hook. Now, rigging the worm, like I said, we've been using the watermelon red today because the water up the lake is a little stained. So you want to make sure you find the seam, and it's right there. What we're going to do is we're going to come all the way down. And then we're going to come right out the seam, shove it all the way up. And what I like to do with Senkos a lot of times is shove it up on there so it actually protects my knot. Then I'm going to come down. I'm going to roll that fatty down, keep it nice and straight. Now the fatty is a lot of stick bait to roll. We're going to come straight out, nice and straight, and then we're just barely going to skin hook it on the back. And you can see how straight we've got that rigged. All right, so let's talk about rod, reel, and line for this girthy fatty from JBro's. Now, this is the Cashin Element Z2. Man, they just redesigned these things. They are sick. $129 rod, blank and all, made in the USA. Incredible. This is a 6'10" medium fast. I like the shorter rod for what we're doing today because shorter rods are going to be a little more accurate when you're casting. Longer rods are going to be a little bit longer cast, but shorter rods, you're going to have that great accuracy with them. Now, the line, of course, I've got about 15 feet of Pro 100, K9 Pro 100. Try it out, guys, 10% off, and it's backed up with K9 braid. I like the pink high vis because the water can turn green and have a little bit of yellow pollen on it in the spring. It's hard to see when I like to throw these worms. So that pink is great. I'm telling you, best braid in the business, 10% off, K9. I'm using 8-pound test for my leader, and I'm using 10-pound test for my braid. I've got it paired up with one of my favorite reels. This is, and they've got a new one. I hate the colors of the new one, I'm not gonna lie. Lose, come on. All gold? No. This is the Team Lose Custom Pro Speed Spin. They've got the Gen 2 out, and again, links to everything in the description. All right, so when we're throwing this as a Texas rig, it's weedless. So we're absolutely okay with throwing it in these big rock crevices because that's where a lot of bass are going to hide as it continues down into the water. They're going to hide in those big crevices. Now, something that you really need to pay attention to, something that you need to make sure you work a little bit more is when you get to transitions. So right here to the side of us, we've got a, I guess we'd call it a mud bank or maybe a pea gravel bank, broken up slate, and then we get into the big boulders. And then we transition back to a little bit of chunk rock and then back to the big slabs of rock. So those transitions, the bass use those. They feel comfortable there. So those are going to be the places that you really need to spend some time on. Another great thing about having about 2.5 feet so that this can move, not just the change in action, but having that weight on there means we can fish this deeper. So it means we can cover more depths faster, which allows us to figure out what depth the bass are actually sitting in. And that's a key because at first we're probably going to sit and have the boat at a 45, where we're going to cast at a 45-degree angle. We're going to bring it more down that bank. But if we notice that they're always about 10 foot off the bank, well, we can push the boat over to where we're about 10 foot off the bank and cast straight out. Now the bait is always in the strike zone, because we've been able to figure that out. And I've always been, you know, it's one of the biggest reasons why I got into throwing in ultra clear water, those big bass tricks and Shadowlicious and those Ramsey baits, all those big 5 and 6 inch swim baits. It's the same way and the same thought. Everyone is told when the conditions get tough to downsize, but sometimes you don't have to downsize. You just have to look more natural or more subtle. But sometimes that bigger natural bait, like a big fat fatty, that is going to get you much better bites, because as I used to always say about throwing those big soft plastic swim baits in that clear water, how many guys do you think are going down through there dink-a-linking a stupid little worm around? And how many guys are throwing that bigger worm or that bigger 6 inch swim bait? And that's where the JBro's fatty comes into play. So the great thing about it being Texas rig, you don't have to be afraid to throw it into anything, but you can see these rocks can be pretty jagged. So about every 5 to 10 casts, you need to be checking that bottom 3 foot of line for frays, and probably retying if you feel anything unusual. You're just going to cast out there 45 degree, going to let it sit to the bottom, going to give it a few seconds after that for the worm to fall with the weight of the hook. Then I like to do 2 things. Sometimes I'll just drag it. Other times I'll twitch it up, because the great thing about a stick bait is they're going to twitch almost like a soft plastic jerk bait, so like a fluke basically. Those will be the 2 things until I figure out whether they want an erratic action or whether they want something just drug and hopped every once in a while. Simple action. It's on a spinning rod, so you know I'm just straight up to kind of 45 hook setting. Once I do that, I'm going to reel down. I always say that's a big key. I see these guys kind of holding that rod up there and reeling. No, once you've got that hook set, start sweeping that rod and reeling faster to the side to get that tip down, so that you can make sure that bass isn't going to jump and throw your bait. Don't lose a big one. I did it just the other day like a moron, and I lost a solid 4-pounder. Don't boat hop them on this unless they're dinks. You know, like I said, I'm using 8, maybe 10-pound test. You can get away with 12, especially fishing some of this heavier, sharper rock cover. Other than that, you know, get down there, get your net if your buddy's with you, or if you can handle it yourself, or just play them out, fight them back to the boat, get down there, put a thumb in their mouth, and put them in the boat. So make sure you go check out the fatties for this spring, man. It is going to get you some bigger bites. It's going to draw those bigger bass in. Love a girthy bait, geeks. All right, so if you want to see some other cool baits and some other ways I like to fish them from JBro's, make sure you go check out this video right here. Otherwise, questions and comments in the comment section below. You geeks know I love to talk fishing with you. Like it if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe and make sure you ring that bell so you get the notifications when these videos come out. Be part of the 100% Watch Squad. It helps us out a ton, and you geeks rock.